everybody. Hello. Live, or at least in one take, from right here in Detroit Rock City. It's the Michigan... Oh! See? Joy Live TV. It's the Michigan Realtors video cast, starring myself, Brad Ward, and of course...
I'm Brian Western.
And we're going to be talking to you today about some very cutting-edge issues, both at the federal level and here at the state level. At both levels of government, we are kicking around tax reform. So at the national level, the NAR has been working diligently with leaders in both the House and the Senate there to talk about tax reform. The mantra from Congress at this point in time is we want your average citizen to be able to do their taxes on a postcard. And that is a great theory, but we all know as real estate folks that if you boil things down to that postcard, you start having some real stakes in the game as far as some of the incentives that exist to get people to own and invest in real estate. MID, mortgage interest deduction. We have the 1031 exchange. We also have deduction of state and local property taxes, just to name a few. So, you know, there are real stakes here, and as you get narrower and you look at things like doubling the standard deduction, some of those things are on the table to discuss about being eliminated. So NAR has been in constant contact with those leaders, letting them know how important those are to home ownership, how important home ownership is to the economy here in this great United States.
That's right. And
I'm going to get these guys to follow me home.
yeah. Tax reform. So yeah, sensible tax reform.
Right.
Sensible tax reform. Yes, as you know, those real stakes will lead to real talk. And one of the areas where you can all get involved, obviously, if you haven't already done so, is text the word Realtor to 30644.
30644!
I love it.
Obviously, the National Association has been ramping up its efforts to communicate with membership, as has the State Association, making sure that when these things are fluid and there is a need for a call to action, that the mobilization is there, and it is literally at the drop of a text message or a Facebook post that people are engaged.
The call for action is an important way that we kind of turn up the volume on those members of Congress about issues that are important to us, and these issues have never been more personal. So here at the state level, tax reform is on the table as well. Both the Michigan Senate and the Michigan House have different plans for eliminating the state income tax. And in fact, just today, the Michigan House Tax Policy Committee voted a bill out of committee and passed to the floor that will phase the state income tax out over a period of 40 years. So you might say, well, that's a long time, but basically the way the bill would operate is it would drop the current rate, which is 4.25%, down to 3.9% beginning January 1st of 2018, and then phase it out 0.1% every year thereafter. So not necessarily pushing the state budget off a cliff, but returning money back to the taxpayers' pockets in a responsible manner. Now, the 3.9% is a magic number. That was actually the income tax rate back under Governor Granholm. We had an increase that brought it up to 4.25 with the intent of bringing it back down to 3.9. So this would actually deliver on that promise that was made quite some time ago. But it's not without its cost. Moving that down to a 3.9% rate, that's $1.1 billion in the first year. Eliminating the full 4.25% is $9 billion. And just to put it into perspective, that's about a third of the state government budget. So it's a lot of belt tightening if we were to just get rid of it outright. And of course, you know, when you start talking about numbers that big and the services that the state delivers and that the citizens, you know, demand from the state, and you start looking at those things, a lot of the media speculation has dug up one of our old friends, like Carrie's dead hand from the grave. Some of those media outlets have been talking about sales tax on services. Yeah, there we go. So the interesting thing is that The last time the state tried a sales tax on services was back in 2007. Because of term limits, there's not a single person currently serving in the Michigan House of Representatives that was here in 2007 or were in elected office in 2007. So we've made it part of our talks as we've gone around to talk about, you know, our opposition to the sales tax on services. We're not the only business group that's talking about that. We look forward to working with our friends in the House to try and avoid the sales tax on services at all costs, but also you know, deliver on what their promise is to those citizens of Michigan. But that leads us to one of our other priorities of this year, which is directly tied to the income tax. Brian?
That's right. Well, obviously, with a 40-year phase-out, we've also been talking about another long-term investment. That is the first-time home buyer savings account. Establishing a first-time home buyer savings account for parents, grandparents, those with dependent children that, you know, would at some point in 20 to 25 years down the road invest in a first-time home in Michigan. This is obviously a long-term investment. The model that we've been talking about with lawmakers would in some ways mirror the way the education savings plans work, where you would have obviously tax-free gain, but also you would have a credit on that investment that you've made in those accounts. Perfect world, making that particular account very valuable to the taxpayer, but also really keying in on retaining talent, focusing on making sure that you know, those extreme debt ratios that folks are coming out of college with right now, and that's only going to be an issue that's going to be growing even greater in dialogue over the next 20 years. That we do address that, because one of the charges that we've raised is that home ownership is a priority, and it should be a priority not just in the here and now, but we should identify ways to make home ownership a possibility 20 years from now. Obviously, down payment assistance and the ability to qualify, this would alleviate a lot of those concerns if you could actually create and identify an account that could grow tax-free. So that's one of the issues that we've been meeting with local officials and legislators on, getting them to understand the concept. There are 3 states currently in the U.S. that actually have these accounts: Colorado, Virginia, and Montana. They've rolled them out fairly recently, so we're going to be watching those to make sure we can identify best practices and some language that would be the most efficient use of that investment.
Yep. And for these and all of the other relevant information from the National Association of Realtors, please be sure to follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Go into mirealtors.com to find more information. With that being said, saying goodbye from Detroit, I'm Brad Ward. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I just realized, hold on just a second.
Our last video cast.
You know, one of the things that we talked about in our last video cast, one of the things they always do on game day is they make predictions, right? So one of the things we talked about was short-term vacation rentals. We had a lot of people banning short-term vacation rentals. That's right, boo. So I want to go, and I'm going to ask Brian for his prediction. Are we going townships or local? Let's do this. I don't want to pick on our friends in the townships. We love the townships. Are we going local governments versus realtors in the battle to ban the ban? Who do you like?
It's going to be a very interesting discussion, and this legislation is primed to be introduced in the next couple months.
Yep.
But I'm going to have to go out on a limb here and predict. All right.
And now I can truly say goodbye from Detroit. Brad Ward and Western. Take care.